Okay, got 1977-65 grand from Kelly, signed along with David Cooper and Bobby Russell. Was it only years later that you could appreciate the kind of impact you three guys had at Rangers?
I think so. At the time we were just the new boys in the team. I got signed after the first game. Rangers lost to Aberdeen on the Saturday and I got signed on the Monday. And Jock Wallace shook my hand and said to me, welcome to the club, that's taken a while. I said, what do you mean? He says, I've been trying to sign you for the last 4 years. Did you know? No? And I went, no. He said, I've been trying to sign you since you were 18. He said, I've been in twice a year. I didn't know. And that's when I said to him, well, that's funny you're saying that because I know you've signed Davy Cooper, he plays in the wing. He's left footed, I'm playing at wing in Kilmarnock. He said, no, but when I first saw you, you were playing middle of midfield. That's where you're going to play for me. And then he said something interesting, he said, you're the last piece of the jigsaw. That's what he said to me.
Right.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, last piece of the jigsaw. So the next thing was, I didn't play the next week because what he said to me was, I won't play you until your fitness is the same. I know you're a part-time player. I'll wait till your fitness is the same as the other boys. So what happened was I didn't play against Hibernian in the next game. We got beat again at home. And what happened was we had a training session on the Tuesday, and we came in after the training session, and Davy Cooper pointed to me and says to, in front of everybody, he goes, by the way, don't get in his group for running. He's some runner. Pointing to me. And I went in the shower, and next thing they came in, said, you have to come out. I said, what do you mean? I said, we've got a race on. You have to race Big Peter McCloy. And I didn't know what it was about, so I went out onto the track. Me and Peter McCloy, we went round the others across the pitch, and we did a half lap race, and I won it. And Coop was hugging me and everything, and after I thought he was just pleased because he'd said I would win. I didn't realise Coop had put a lot of money on me to win that race. I didn't know he was a gamble at that time.
Was Big Peter one of the fastest at the club?
He was one of the fastest at the club, so I won the race. And I'm leaving Ibrox that day, this is true, I'm leaving Ibrox and Big Jock Wallace, top of the stairs, Smithy looked up, he says, come up here. So I went upstairs and he goes, sit down. And he said, I've just been watching out the window there, you running that race. He says, how come you never told me when you signed last week you could run like that? I said, well, you never asked me. And he goes, you're playing Saturday. That's how I got in the team. I played, that was me in the team then, first game against Partick Thistle, and from then on, I never went back out.
So you missed the first 2 games, and then Rangers lost the first 2 games, and then there was you got 4 doubles in the next 5 games.
Yeah.
Now, the one of them was obviously against Celtic. We were 2-0 down at half time. We went on to win 3-2. Did you and the team gain an awful lot of belief that day from?
Yeah, it was my first Old Firm game, and it was amazing because we're losing 2-0 at half time, and Big Jock said sit down, and I thought we're going to get a row here, and it was quite strange because all my time in football, you generally get a row if you're losing at half time. The manager had a go at you. He didn't. He was totally the opposite. I couldn't believe it. He goes sit down, and I thought he's going to shout at us, and he said, I can't believe you're getting beat. You're better than them. You're fat. You're fitter than them. They've scored 2 lucky goals. We're better players. If we play like that in the second half, we're going to win this game. It was unbelievable half-time team talk. I was not expecting it. Went out in the second half, and exactly as Big Jock said, we won the game 3-2, and it was the biggest thrill ever for me because to play my first Old Firm game and score 2 goals and I win over Celtic at Ibrox was amazing.
It must have been a phenomenal feeling, and it was also Jock Wallace v Jock Stein, wasn't it? At
yeah.
That time, and our Jock was kind of getting the upper hand a bit on
yeah, he was in the big. But Jock Wallace, I mean, even to this day, Big Jock's the best manager I played for. He knew when to put you down and when to lift you. You know, because I remember I'd scored, as I say, it was 2 goals in the first 4 games, I think, in each game. And I think the game after that we were getting beat against St Mirren at Love Street it was, and he was giving a bit of a row to the players, and he suddenly grabbed my shirt and he pulled me out of the seat. He says, see, when I say we're not playing well, I'm talking to everybody in the team. Put me back down, right? Because I must have been sitting there with a face on me thinking, well, I'm doing well at the moment, it's not me he's talking to. That was my lesson, but I found out at other times when I was down, he was brilliant, because I remember one day he did the same, he grabbed me and he said, see, when you gave me the effort, you gave me the day, son, you'll always win this team. I didn't have a very good game, but it was to lift me, and that's what Big Jock was like, and he was great to play for.
You had 4 goals against Celtic that season, Gordon.
Yeah.
Was that let's say, that cliche about like being a big game player, but did you enjoy playing against Celtic?
I did. I mean, I think it was just that there was pressure on you because you knew what was expected, but I just felt that it's a wee bit like show business to a degree. If you want to be big in show business, then you have to appreciate you're going to go to the biggest stage and perform, and the biggest stage in Scotland to perform in is an Old Firm game. So that was it was a thrill for me to play in them. I was not nervous about playing in them. I was actually just excited and looking forward to it, and I loved it because I thought, I playing for Kilmarnock, I'd never experienced playing in front of crowds like that before, the intensity, you know, and the size of the crowd and everything. So for me, you couldn't get away from the fact that that's what my ambition was as a kid, being a Rangers fan, wanting to play for Rangers and play against Celtic, and then to have actually been winning team and score against them was a great thrill.
Talking about experience there, you get a different kind of experience at Rangers. It was 5 years after Barcelona, but it was still 7 members of that Barcelona
Correct.
team playing. Was that good for you?
It's spot on. That's what was very good. You know why? Because there was a great balance there. There was 3 new players come in, were Bobby Russell, David Cooper, and myself. We were the 3 new players that got added to that team. But what you're saying is absolutely spot on. We then fitted in with players who had done it before, players who were experienced, players who knew what was required. And at Rangers, that's one of the things, you need to know what's required. Because even Jock Wallace said to me, one of the first things he said was, he says, you need 2 things to play for this team, son. He says, you need skill and you need character. That's what he said. What he means is that not everybody can handle the pressure that's on you. And that's why I think that the 3 of us fitted in comfortably because of what were around about us, the experience of those players.
So, treble in your first season, Gordon, did you ever think at that point, this is easy?
No, you never do. You know that's just a marvellous thing to have, because, I mean, to be fair, the season before that, Rangers had won nothing, but the season before that, they won a treble. So I think what we more or less had in our minds was that it's not just a treble after treble, you have to be up for it, you need to be, and it's quite an interesting thing, because I remember speaking to Alex Ferguson years later, and he said that one of the big problems you get sometimes with football clubs and players is when they achieve their goal, they switch off a little bit. So that's why they have a great season.
Yep.
Next season's not so good, and then they have to recover again. It's a true fact, and that's why we were still up for it. The thing was, we got a new manager in though, because John Gregg had taken over. Because so then you ended a situation where somebody wants you to do certain things differently, and John Gregg had taken over for Jock Wallace. But so it was never comfortable. Although we won the treble, I would never took it for granted that that's what was going to happen all the time.
Because in that vein, I mean, you can, if a team clinches the league with 5 games to go, sometimes they ease off and they'll lose the next 3 or 4 games. So
absolutely. Well, the amazing thing about that season was we won the league on the last day. We beat Motherwell on the last day to win the league, and the next week was the cup final. We beat Aberdeen, who we just pipped for the league as well. Now, you know the interesting thing about that, I've spoken to that a few times to people, that you know the manager of the year was selected with about 3 weeks to go in the season, and who was the manager of the year? Billy McNeill.
Is that right?
Yeah, and Jock Wallace wins the treble.
That's right.
Billy McNeill was manager of the year, so it just shows you, I've always said this, they choose the manager of the year too quickly. Because within Billy McNeill, after Billy McNeill gets the manager of the year, we pipped them for the league and beat them in the cup final.
Would it be fair to say that you enjoyed working under Jock Wallace? Very
much so. He was great to work for. I was devastated when he left. At the end of that season, you know, I was actually still at home. I was getting married that month when Big Jock left, and I got my mum, I think it was the next month, it was just after that, and my mum, I was still at home, my mum said it's on the radio there that Jock Wallace has left. I was like, what do you mean? She says he's resigned, he's left Rangers. I was devastated by it, because I just thought, I didn't know how I was going to go on with the new manager, but regardless of that, regardless of who was going to come in, I just felt I was devastated that I was losing Jock Wallace, who I'd like so much respect for, and I think that I'd done the job for him as well. And I was totally taken up by it. In 1992, he did an article in a newspaper, and the guys had asked him, of all the players you had as a manager, who was the best? And he said, me. I was stunned by that. I was stunned. Yeah, I couldn't believe he said that, and he actually said me. The guy got in touch with me and said, "You're a great compliment today." I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I meant to you, Jock Wallace." And he said, "You're the best player he ever had." I was like, "Wow." Couldn't believe it.
How did the dynamics change, Gordon, when John Gregg took over? Obviously a club legend and been there most of his life. How did it change?
I think it was hard. I think to go straight from being a manager, being a player at the club you then become manager of, I think that's wrong, because I remember Billy McNeill even saying that. That's why he went to Clyde, and Billy McNeill then went to Aberdeen, because he said people talking about him taking over at Celtic. He said it's better you go and do it somewhere else first and then take over. And I think there was a wee bit of that with John Gregg. I think Greggy had his mindset on what he knew about the people that were there, what players were getting towards the end of their careers and all that, and I think that to a certain degree that had an impact on it. He did start pretty well though, because we had a good start to that season, but as the season went on, we diminished a bit.
Well, I mean, as I was going to say, it's a bad start again, no wins in 6. Did that kind of put you behind the 8 ball from the start, maybe?
A little bit, you know. We did well. We're European season started well though. That was we beat Juventus and then PSV Eindhoven, two of the biggest clubs. Juventus were actually favourites to win. Total shock to everybody that we won. So that gave us a massive lift, and we got things going in the end after that with the confidence we got. But there was no doubt about it. There was no consistency to our game that season, and that's one of the sad elements of it.
You touched on Juventus there, Gordon. Obviously, you scored that night yourself and Alex Donald. We beat them 2-0. Even throughout your whole career, is that one of the highlights of your career?
Certainly is, yeah. I mean, I didn't even know at the time. I knew they were favourites. They'd won the UEFA Cup in the May before that. They were favourites to win it, and they had 7 players in that team that became World Cup winners for Italy. That's how good they were. They were a fantastic team. The dearest place, Bettiga up front, was the dearest player in the world at the time. They had people like Causio, Cabrini, and it was amazing the team they had. And we lost 1-0 in Italy, and I've got to say this, Peter McCloy was absolutely fantastic in Italy, because we could have been about 5 or 6 that night. He had a great game, so we realised how good they were. But then coming to the home game and beating them 2-0 was amazing, and it's one of the highlights of my career, to score against Juventus as well and score the winning goal.
Just back to domestically very quickly, Gordon. We won both cups that season and finished second in the league. Well, we're pretty close to another treble.
We were very close to it, but the thing was very disappointing, because we lost the league basically in the last game at Celtic Park. We lost 4-2 against 10-man Celtic. That still rankles with me to this day. That could have been my second treble. We also we were in a European Cup quarter-final, and we didn't play well enough in the return game at Ibrox against Cologne. Whereas you look at the final that year, it was Nottingham Forest against Malmo. We knocked out the 2 best teams, Eindhoven and Juventus, and then we lost to Cologne, and that was a disappointment as well.
What was your overriding emotion at the end of that season, Gordon?
Well, my overriding emotion was disappointment. I was really down about it, because having won the treble the year before, and although we won 2 cups, I was still gutted we didn't win the league again. I wanted to win the league again, but the European one was something that did hurt me to a degree, and it's still to this day is one of my biggest disappointments, was that season when we could have gone on and won the European Cup after beating the 2 best teams. We were there to do it, but there was a lot of problems with injury problems and suspensions, things like that, before the Cologne game, and that put us back a bit, and there's no doubt that had an effect on us.
Your final season at Rangers, probably a season to forget. I think we finished 5th that season. It was,
yeah. Well, we didn't. Things were already going downhill. There was no doubt about it. I ended up going to Brighton at the end of that season, and Alan Mullery told me at that time, fun enough, he'd been in for me 7 times. He put in a bid for me that season, and he also told me an amazing story that he tried to sign me and Davy Cooper.
Is that right?
He told me, yeah. He said, I went, the 2 of us went, yeah. He said, I put in a bid for you both. Eventually John Gregg said, you can have one of them. Which one do you want? And he said, I've chosen you. And I said, well, you get the wrong one. That's what I said to him. He went, what do you mean? I says, Coop, he says, I saw you playing 2 games, Gordon, West Ham and Kilmarnock. He says, you scored 3 goals and Davy Cooper made the 3 of them. And I said, well, with a great understanding together. He goes, that's why I wanted you both. He says, but the reason I've gone for you is, he says, but Davy Cooper could maybe create chances here, but we don't have somebody maybe from midfield like yourself who can put the ball in the net. I need somebody that can score goals. So he said, that's why I've gone for you. So that's why I went to Brighton at that time. And I didn't want to go. I just signed a 5-year contract. I did not want to go. But having said that, I did thank John Gregg later, because I did enjoy my time down there, and it was probably the right time to leave Rangers, because things were on the slide at that time. There's no doubt about it. It wasn't the best of times.
You mentioned your special on-field relationship with Davy Cooper. Were you friends off it, or was it?
Yeah. Davy Cooper and I were very good friends. Even the day Davy Cooper died, I was meeting him the next day for lunch. I couldn't believe it. STV phoned me and said, we're doing a bit on Davy Cooper. Could you do a piece on him? I said, oh, you're doing a documentary about it? Have you not heard? I said, heard what? He's died. And I went, you're kidding me on.
Wow.
I did not know, and I was totally devastated. I couldn't do the interview. I said, no, I can't do it. I was losing a member, part of my family. Davy Cooper and I were close friends.
I mean, it was 3 seasons together, but it was
three. Yeah.
You know, mixed.
We just were good friends. I learned to cope with Coop. What happened? It took me 2 or 3 weeks to realise when Coop was on the ball, you let him have his little touches on it. He liked to have his touches on the ball. But what was great is he drew in people round about him, the defence, the other team, and see them when you made your run. Then he saw you. You didn't have to even shout for it. You just made your move, and Coop slotted you in and made you go, and put you through or whatever. So he was great to play with. tremendous footballer and a great character. I really had a lot of time for him.
You played with a lot of good teams in your time, Gordon. You played abroad, you know, probably, well, maybe they moved to Brighton, you know, was it 4-1 to moving abroad. Would you look upon your time at Rangers, but as a highlight of your career?
Very special to me, yeah, no doubt about it. I enjoyed my time at Brighton, that was great for me as well, but the other clubs I was at was just about enjoying my time there. Rangers were special because being a Rangers fan and getting to play for them, scoring goals, winning cups, winning competitions, meant everything to me. As I say, and although only the 3 years there and I was moved on, you're right what you said, I enjoyed the fact that I then moved on. I went to Brighton, Man City, then went abroad to try and improve my knowledge of the game. So I had a great experience in football in general, but I'm so glad that in my time at Brighton, at Rangers, that was a special time for me to have played for the club, especially with the players I had round about me from the 72 Cup winning team, and also two guys like Bobby Russell and David Cooper, good friends. Derek Parley was a great friend of mine, went to Man City with me. We were Man City together. Big Derek Johnstone was a great striker. So there was loads of factors like that made it special, and that's why I'll never ever forget it, and I'm so thankful that I got that.
Well, thanks very much, I really appreciate it.
Okay. Constantly lie